All right, what to do 2 years before retirement. This is critical. This is a second attempt at this video because the first one had no audio. Please, please, please listen to this. This is so critical. Now I'm going to set the stage for a lady I'm dealing with right now, and hopefully you're similar to her. All right, this is the vast majority of my client base, by the way. All right, my client base isn't. It's weird. Sometimes I get people say, "You only deal with rich people." I said it. I guess rich is relative, but I deal with people who've been, keeping their head down at work, some crappy old job, and even not a crappy old job, just a job for 20, 25, 30 years even. They don't live in the lap of luxury. They're driving older vehicles. I'm telling you, it's typical. They drive, 2012 Toyota Camrys. They might buy a car every 5 to 10 years, and they'll either take a loan or they'll pay cash money. Either way, these cars get paid off and they just keep them for another 5 or 10 years. It's the same story over and over and over again. They have a house they've been in for the last 15, 20, 25 years. They haven't refinanced that much. They might have refinanced once, maybe twice, but generally speaking, if they do refinance, they're refinancing it when they're taking a 15-year, a 30-year to a 15-year, and they're paying it off. And I'm not saying this is appropriate for you. It's not appropriate for me. But this is the way it is. This lady is divorced, had some kids, raised some kids, and a lot of times divorcees will be on the outside looking in when it comes to settlement for the divorce, and they'll essentially, a lot of times, they're not going to be in a good place financially. But it just goes to show you don't need to be rich. You just have to plug away, show up to work on time, stay at one job. Don't think the grass is always greener. And that means, yes, it might be in a crappy old job for some time. But now she's 2 years out. In fact, I'm thinking we could probably finagle a way for her to retire now, but I don't think I would not want to take that risk. I just think it's a couple more years that she'll be fine, and she's okay with that. She's not miserable. She doesn't have diabetes. She's not going to keel over at the desk. So she can plug away for another couple years and be fine. But anyway, the issue is here, because she just followed this basic stuff, plugging away, taking advantage of the 401k. If she's got 600 something like that, 1,000 in her 401k, maybe 100,000 outside, but I don't think so. I think the vast majority is in her 401k pre-tax. Now, unfortunately, she watched my videos and said, hey darky, and she started to do some money to the Roth portion of the 401k. So whereas before she's contributing 14% to her 401k, now she only has a 5% match. Now she's only doing 11% because the after-tax cash flow has made her not be able to put so much away in. And after our first conversation, I said, no, don't do that anymore. Go ahead and do the pre-tax, because her income, she's been at this job for a number of years, has gone up, where she's in the low 6 figures down as a single person. That means she's 22% easily. And I said, look, when in 2 years, when you hang up, you'll never be in this high of a tax bracket again. Never. So you need to you still need to take advantage of the tax deferral, even if that means you'll have taxes to pay on the distributions later on, but you'll never be in this high tax bracket again. So we're going to do some serious tax planning to kind of offset the taxes, the tax torpedo when it comes to Social Security. But that's not what this thing is about. She's been plugging away into the S&P 500. S&P 500, S&P 500, S&P 500. It's such a wonderful thing to behold. And now she's sitting on $600,000-$700,000. Just a regular, good old lady that driving a 2012 Toyota Camry or something like that. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But anyway, just a regular lady in just a regular house, driving a regular car. Now she's sitting on nearly $750,000 liquid on top of equity that she's got in her home. It's freaking awesome. I love it. And she still has a little bit of a mortgage, all right? But the issue here is she has all this equity in her home and in the portfolio. What she needs to do, and this is why I told her, I said, all right, stop contributing any more to your investments. Now we want you to contribute solely to the stable value fund or the short-term bond fund. She sent me her 401k investment options that I'm going to look, either the stable value fund or the short-term bond fund. Every single penny, she needs to build up her cash reserves. Every single penny she contributes and the company match needs to go into her cash reserves. Now, let's just for simplicity, she's making, let's say, $150,000 with bonuses or whatnot. It's probably not making that much, but just for simplicity. All right, if she's making that kind of money, what we need to do now is we need to make sure that she has, when she retires in 2 years, she has enough money to fall back on where she does not need to take money out of a portfolio that's just got hit by 30 or 40%. Does that make sense? So she already has her money in investments. She's already done the beauty and allowed the beauty of dollar cost averaging to work for her. Now what we got to do is just let that amount of money just sit there idle. That's fine. It'll do what it's going to do. But to keep contributing to investments now, it doesn't do you any good, man. Because let's just say she's putting $30,000 into her 401k for the next 2 years with the company match. I'll add. That's not going to, literally is not going to do anything, because what happens with investing is the longer you can invest, the more growth you'll get on a compounded nature. I mean, it's just that simple. So for simplicity, if she adds 30% in, we'll just say the market goes up 10%. That's a $3,000 rate of return, but it won't even be $3,000 because she's adding 30,000 in. That's gonna be 30,000 in increments of 26, right? Because or 24, twice a month, every paycheck, either 24 or 26. She's putting some amount of money in her company's matching. So if the S&P 500 returned 10%, it give her no more than $3,000. Probably give her about $2,000 over the course of the next 12 months. Now that's not worth the risk, because the downside is that $30,000 could go down, frankly, 20, 30%, 35%, like we saw at the beginning of from February to March 23rd. So that's not the risk we're taking. What we want to make sure is she has a cash portfolio, man, a money she can draw into when she retires that she can live off. The last 2 years of the investments before are all short term. You're a short term investor now. The last 2 years makes you a short term investor. You got 2 years before you retire and 2 years after you retire. Those 4 years make you a short term investor. And those 4 years are critical to make sure you don't have the sequence of return risk, which, look, I somewhat discount, because I do take issue with the whole safe withdrawal rate thing and the 4% rule. But the sequence of return risk is real, man. If you retire into a bear market and you're pulling stocks out to fund your lifestyle, that's you can't have that, man. That's bad. So what we got to do in this regard is we got to say, okay, we'll just say she has $700,000. All right, say the market goes up 10%. Well, that $700,000 will capture $70,000 of the market going up. All right, so that $30,000 she's contributing to the 401k, to the investment, you'll get $3,000 at best, and it won't. But that's just a drop in the bucket relative to this huge amount of assets she already has, which is going to go by, if that goes by 10%, it will be a $70,000 increase. That's the beauty of just building up wealth. So think about it. She'll drop $30,000 into the mix, right? All right, a 10% increase in the S&P 500 would more than double that. More than double that, because $70,000, $700,000 at 10% is a $70,000 rate of return. She's dropping 10% in. I cannot stress enough how important this is. Once you get that big nut of money, the growth on that is just huge. So she wants to make, now on the counter to that is if the market falls 35%, well, that's gonna stink. She's gonna be in a world of hurt. So that $70,000 will drop, whatever 35% of that is. I don't know off the top of my head. $250,000 or something like that. But if she has built up this portfolio of cash, she doesn't need to pull any money from that, because she has this cash portfolio. So for the next 2 years, build up cash, build up cash, build up cash. I'm just telling you, we want 2 years of cash on the front end of it, right before you retire. Build up 2 years of cash, and we want 2 years of cash on the back end. As long as we have 4 years, this is where it's so important, the 4 years of cash. There's no magic to the 4 years of cash, by the way. It's just 2 years before and 2 years after. We want you to have 2 years. So when you hang up your boots, we say, okay, we were able to squirrel enough cash away in the previous 2 years of work that we have 2 years covered. Now, we also, ideally, we want you to be able to have 2 years of reserves on top of that too. So what I'm going to recommend to her, and we haven't done this yet, is say, look, $700,000, it costs you, I think, 35,000 years to live on. So that's 70. We need 140,000 in cash. So put The next 2 years, your $30,000 that you're dropping into your 401k with your employer match, put that in your stable value fund, put that in your short-term bond fund. On top of that, let's take $70,000 off. That's 10% off your portfolio, your S&P 500, and also put that in there. Does that make sense? So you got 2 years of cash immediately right now, just created right now from pulling some money that you have in your S&P 500, dump into your cash portfolio, and on top of that, we're going to add to that with our contributions and our company matches. And so we'll have 4 years coverage once we hang up our boots, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And again, if you're missing out on 10% rates of return, it's a 10% rate of return on a smaller amount of money. You'll still have $630,000 in there to get that 10% rate of return, which is huge. The whole point is once that nut is big, is like this, whoo, you just sit there and let the returns just dwarf anything you're contributing to. And I just cannot stress how important it is to get that nut built, because then it's just dividends, interest, capital gains. It's wonderful at that point. So I hope this helps. And remember, in this case, she doesn't want to do Roth because she is in the mid to low to mid 150 or something, maybe a little bit below income, single. And so she right now she's in 22-24% tax bracket. On top is the FICA. It doesn't make sense to do deferrals, to do Roth. Let's just go, and this is what I told her, just go back to doing pre-tax. That way, when you hit retirement, you can pull that money out at, I think, 62 at the minimal tax, and then you don't have Social Security until you're 67. Your taxes are not going to be big. All right, I hope that helps. I'd love to hear your comments. We'll see you.